Good morning. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you very much to Payments Canada for giving me the opportunity to come here. So why am I here, both on this stage and as the new CEO at Interac? It's really because I believe in the opportunity for Canada and Canadians to be able to leapfrog forward, to leapfrog from being lower in the digitalization index on the global stage to being a leader in the digital world. And how are we going to do that? It really lies in making the most of real-time account-to-account payments, and it also lies in doing our part in terms of combating fraud. And neither of those two things are new or groundbreaking, but what is new is that we need to approach them in a very different way. And that approach needs to start now with all the people in this room in order to be able to accelerate the change. Now, no visuals today, it's just me, so I'm going to do my best in terms of keeping you engaged and energized over the next 10 minutes or so. So Canada has this incredible potential and opportunity to be that global leader on the digital index. And that's something that I personally am very passionate about in terms of making us a leader on the global stage. I've led my life around the world, lived in many different parts of the world, and today my family is spread across the globe as well. I've got 3 children. One's in Bath, UK, one's in Savannah, US, and one's in Sydney, Australia. In fact, I'm going to the US tomorrow to see my daughter graduate, and unfortunately that means that I'm not going to be with you for the rest of the conference, which I'm really disappointed by, but obviously it's a very important milestone for our family. But it's this notion of a global family that really got me interested in Interac. And going to my first town hall at Interac, I was really struck by all the different nationalities and stories and narratives there were from the team. And when I met with our senior leadership team, the top 26 people in the company when I first arrived, I was struck by the different nationalities there. 15 different nationalities out of 26 different people, and more women than men, which I was not used to, having worked in the fintech space for the last 3 decades. So I really immediately felt at home. And I really felt that purpose and belonging about doing something meaningful here in Canada. And I do truly believe that as a nation, we can lead in digital payments, and that is something that is absolutely within our grasp. What's more, the fundamental building blocks for making that happen, they're already here. We have them at Interac. We have them inside this room with many of you. But what actually threatens to hold us back and what our biggest headwind is mindset. It's not capabilities, it's not expertise, it's not technology, it's our mindset and the way we think. As a newcomer to Canada, I've heard this notion that it's good enough, and therefore we don't need to change too fast. I often hear that the glass is half empty, and it's not half full when thinking about Canada's ability to lead. There's a phraseology that I hear that we're behind, nothing's going to change. It's really not worth pushing in order to make this happen. So that's the mindset that we've got to change. And when we shift that and we focus on what we have, what we can do, what we have achieved, it's at that point that change can happen very quickly. And that's what we really need from all of us in this room. Some of you have heard me talk about or post on LinkedIn about a concept called jugaad, J-U-G-A-A-D, jugaad. Jugaad is a Hindi word. It means literally frugal innovation. It's how you innovate when your resources are constrained and they're limited. It's this spirit of innovation in India that's brought them to be the leading digital economy in the world. India, a notoriously bureaucratic and hierarchical country, it's where the term red tape was invented. So the concept was first explained to me of jugaad, of a farmer who needed to plow their field, didn't have a tractor. What do? They get their motorbike, they get a basic plow, and they plow the field. Why did they do that? Because they had no choice. It's how they had to get it done. And the questions that we need to ask ourselves is, how can you get the job done with what you have? Don't wait for what you don't have. How can you leverage available technologies and building blocks that we have today, but in new and different ways? How can you be nimble and adapt to the new circumstances and meet the needs of the moment? Within Interac, we've gone through a structural transformation, and it's the path that we're on and the mindset that we're advocating. We're on a path to agile excellence, and we're looking for everyone in the room to join us to do that. And the pursuit is digital excellence in digital payments. So I mentioned that we have the building blocks in Canada to be that world-leading digital payments, digital verification-led economy. And there are the two areas that I mentioned at the beginning that I really want to focus in on: real-time account-to-account payments and fraud capabilities, those two areas. So let's start with real-time account-to-account payments. The world's most advanced digital economy have real-time as a backbone to their economy. That's why RTR is such a game changer for Canada. It's going to impact the daily lives of Canadians, of our economy, much more quickly and more significantly than many of you in this room think. I'm personally very excited about it, personally committed to the direction of RTR. And it's great that Interac and Payments Canada, IBM, CGI are all teaming together to bring this together quickly. So our real-time, along with open banking that we just heard about, it enables faster, secure, more accessible ways of doing business. And there are inspiring examples from across the world. Australia, the new payments platform, MPP, introduced in 2018, a few years later had 1 billion transactions a year of new real-time use cases that represented about 1/4 of all real-time. In Brazil, Pix launched in 2020. By 2023, 145 million customers, which is 85% of Brazil's adult population, are using Pix every day, 36 billion Pix transactions since inception. Things can move very fast, and we've seen that across the whole world, whether it's Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. The US is now starting. Usage snowballs with a real-time digital customer experience. It could start with basic things like using a QR code at a food truck. It moves on to suppliers, to small businesses using real-time in order to be able to request for payment, to be able to automatically reconcile and change the management of receivables, for instant refunds to be given to customers, for employees to be disperse their expenses immediately, for bills to get paid when they need to get paid. Every industry is touched. Millions of businesses see faster, steadier cash flow. The potential for SMBs, over 90% of employers' businesses in Canada are SMBs, small, medium businesses. They can get paid and be paid instantly. They have that enhanced financial management process. And what does that lead to? It leads to job creation. It leads to economic growth. It's a virtuous circle, a ripple effect. So real-time payments can give Canadians much greater confidence and control over their finance. It increases the velocity of money in the system. It increases economic growth. It increases prosperity for all of us. Those are really big words and a pursuit and a purpose that we can all make happen. We're already well on our way to make this happen. Interac is the exchange provider for RTR. We've built the front end, and the build was completed in the middle of last year. We're really excited about the momentum now that we're going into and the continued growth that we're going to see over and above the Interac e-transfer system that we already have in place. And that Interac e-transfer real-time system is used over 1 billion times a year today. And within that, SMBs are using it for request-to-pay capability that's actually growing at about 300% year on year. So for RTR, the next step is the settlement system. And then when we have that in place, we have that infrastructure in order to take a big leap forward with real-time payments. Now, we can't do that without very strong fraud capabilities from day one. In the world of money movement and instant money movement, the stakes of financial crime, they get higher and higher. And the next phase of our financial system will have many more points of vulnerability and many more players within it. Fraud is already rising. Canadians lost more than $500 million last year, and that was a 50% increase on the year before. But it's estimated only about 5 to 10% of fraud actually gets reported. So the total fraud loss could be as high as $10 billion. The problem is we actually don't have accurate data to know that. In India, when they launched UPI, the world's largest real-time system today, I was at a conference there in 2019, and the single conversation was about fraud and how that could stop the evolution of UPI. Clearly, that didn't happen. But the rapid adoption of UPI attracted financial crime syndicates from around the world. And one of the ways that the banks and the regulators in India attacked that was to address it through enhanced security measures, through the Aadhaar digital verification system, and requiring much stronger customer authentication methods to prevent fraud. With the rise of AI, the proliferation of all these different digital touch points, fraud is becoming a lot harder and more sophisticated to spot. And when you add real-time and instant payments in the mix, that becomes a dangerous situation. So there are two dimensions to tackle fraud that we all need to get on board with. One is preventing fraud in the first place, before it happens, and secondly is to detect it as quickly as possible when it does happen. And preventing fraud before it happens, there is a deceptively simple question that we need to go after. How do you know that the person that you are sending or receiving money is the person that you intend that to be? In a world of instant transactions, that is critically important. In the future, every transaction has to have an authentication on both sides. The Nordics have really showed us the way forward over the last 20 years with Bank ID. The result is a 360-degree customer experience, from verification through real-time transactions with high security and data protection. That's why Sweden has one of the lowest fraud rates in the world, near zero. That's where we need to be. So what about Canada? When it comes to infrastructure to prevent fraud, we have a lot of those building blocks already today. And that's why security is the core of everything that we're doing at Interac. It's why we've invested heavily in authentication and verification technology. And today we serve over 45 federal organizations, and we operate the authentication layer for the leading financial institutions here. So what we're focused on is building something in Canada for Canadians versus handing over the keys and the data to foreign players. Preventing fraud requires data. We've talked about that in the open banking. For RTR, we're exploring from day one a centralized fraud and directory service that's going to be the critical integrated part of an RTR payment. We're looking forward to working on the plan for that with Payments Canada, and we're looking forward to moving that vision forward, similar to a Bank ID type of model. Now, that's the prevention of fraud before it happens, but what about detecting in real time after it happens? And things get much more connected in our financial world. If there's one detection vulnerability, it affects everybody. And fraud is a really big pain point for us here in Canada. So we're advocating at Interac for a consortium view of data across the entire industry in order to help that fraud detection capability. Interac's position in the ecosystem as a connector to financial institutions and other ecosystem players that really puts Interac in a unique position to drive those efforts. We think that use cases such as confirmation of pay or beneficiary data confirmation are critical, as well as centralized services such as a mule account identification service. So these measures, along with continuously improving security protocols, are really going to help us. AI is critical as a technology to also help enable this. And we're implementing a number of changes today because the fraud problem is with us today. It is not tomorrow's problem for RTR. So we're improving the signals that we're providing to the ecosystem today using AI technology and move towards that real-time detection of fraud. And that's going to result in increased alerts in order to help with that suspicious activity. We need to look at jurisdictions around the world, such as the UK, the US, and Australia, and their leadership around data sharing. So I've begun by saying that Canada has this fabulous opportunity to be a leader. Truly believe that. I'm really proud at Interac that we're working on a number of those building blocks today in order to make that happen. And it's really important that we change that mindset. And that's our biggest challenge today. It's not the technology, it's not, it's the mindset. It's that jugaad approach that we need to take. And I challenge that all of you in your organizations, please take that can-do attitude. Yes, we can. Let's do it together. And there are some certain principles that we need to adhere to as we change that mindset. An open, sharing, collaborative conversations that we have together, high on trust and full on collaboration across the entire industry. The second piece is around looking for leapfrog moments. Let's not try and go for sequential step-by-step areas. Small, medium businesses can leapfrog from where they are today to have, for example, a 3,000% increase in request to pay versus 300% increases through great use cases. And lastly, this is a global game. We're going to make things for Canada, for Canadians, but payments is a global game. Fraud detection prevention is a global game. We've got to learn from others around the world, collaborate with them, bring the best there is available, and make it Canadian. So let's get this done. Let's jugaad this. Thank you very much.